Hello. A week ago I announced the Q&A for reaching 1,000 members on my server, and this is a response video to hopefully answer as many questions as I can. What is your favorite color? My favorite color is purple, mainly a deep shade of purple like indigo. Though, with the creation of this channel I have opened up to lighter shades. What is your favorite instrument? My favorite instrument is the piano. I love how versatile the instrument is, plus it just sounds really cool. However, composing has shown me how cool a violin could be. But I wouldn't say I prefer it over the piano. Can you teach me how to make music like you? I don't think I'm qualified to be teaching anybody how to make music since I barely know any music theory. It's sort of hard to hear what you guys notice when you listen to my stuff, but maybe one day I'll live stream or make a video of me making a song from start to finish. What's your opinion on
Lemon Meringue?
Wait, hang on. How old are you? I am 19. My question is, how do you feel about similar FL Studio artists like you? I haven't interacted with many of the other content creators, so I can't express an opinion as to what they're like. As for the people that I have talked with, they've been really kind and helpful. In terms of the community as a whole, like Azalea, Moran, Shogo, everybody is super talented and I take heavy inspiration from all of them. How long does it take you to make the songs you post? It really depends on the type of song I'm trying to make, as songs vary in complexity. For example, if I were to make a piano solo, it would typically take me around 1 or 2 days to fully complete the piece. But if it's something like Nozariq or the Seraphim boss battle song that I make, maybe around like 5 days to fully complete. Usually the amount of elements that are in a song affects how long it takes me to complete. But with that being said, it also depends on how I'm feeling whilst creating the piece. I like to take breaks while composing as it helps me think of new ideas and ways I can polish ideas that I've already set down. But yeah, it just depends on a lot of things. First, congrats on hitting 1K. Thank you to everybody who's congratulated me on hitting this milestone. Now here's my question, do you have any video games you enjoy playing? If so, would you mind telling which ones? I could go on for hours about all the games I like to play, but for the sake of the length of this video, I'll just keep it short. First game that comes to mind would be Minecraft. I think Minecraft has changed my taste in music in terms of the stuff I create and listen to. C418's works are a huge source of inspiration for a lot of my piano pieces, but I'll get into that later. In general, I just have a lot of good memories playing Minecraft, and I don't think I'll ever be a game that I'll get tired of. I also grew up playing Undertale, and was really invested in the alternative timelines like Glitch Tale and X-Tale. And of course, I can't mention Undertale without mentioning Toby Fox, who has inspired me to create a lot of my songs. Another favorite game of mine would have to be Portal 1 and 2. I like to play a lot of puzzle games, and Portal was just that, with cool characters and a cool story. Raise in peace, Wheatley. And the song at the end that GLaDOS performed in Portal 2, I'm pretty sure, was just amazing. Besides those, I mainly just play Honkai Star Rail and Wuthering Waves sometimes. How long have you been making music for? I started creating music when I was around 13, I'm pretty sure. So that would make it almost 7 years since I've started creating music. But if you're only talking about composing, maybe about 1 or 2 years. How did you start creating music? If we're not counting school, my first exposure to creating music was on Noteblock Studio. I'm not sure if you can count this as a DAW, but I'm just gonna count it as one, cause why not? Essentially, this DAW would just allow you to create music using all of the sounds from Minecraft without needing to know how to do redstone, which I still struggle with. All I could remember was the amount of joy I experienced while I was trying to create a song, and I think from that point on, I decided this is just what I want to do. I wish I had the 2 or 3 tracks I made, but I might try make something again in the future with Block Studio. What/who inspires you? To start it off, I take a lot of inspiration from Azalea, especially how he formats his content. I like a lot of the harmony he uses in his songs, and since I don't know much music theory, I'm kind of like a sponge. What I mean by that is I soak up a lot of the information I get when I listen to different types of songs, whether that be their technique, the way they arrange, progress, the chords, everything. However, when I started composing, a lot of my inspiration came from C418 and Toby Fox, like I mentioned before. I'm a huge fan of ambient music, especially the type that C418 made, and to combine that with the harmonies of Toby Fox is something that I tried to do at the beginning when I started composing. Since then I've learned a lot, and the blending of all of the things that I've listened to have just created this sound that I have now. As of recently, by recently I mean for a couple of months now, I've been listening to a lot of the NieR soundtracks, and I'm just in love with the harmony that the composers for that soundtrack have used. All NieR soundtracks have their own distinct elements to them, but the 2 tracks, Grammar and Dependent Weakling, have just stuck out to me. I like the track Grammar, as the harmony used in that song is something I've never heard before, and it's just... It's very hard to describe the feelings it makes me feel. The harmonies, plus how simple the song really is when you listen to it, showed me you don't need to create something too complex to make a good song. Speaking about Grammar reminded me of the song Voice of No Return, which also follows a similar premise. The track Dependent Weakling kinda goes the same way. Except this track has really, really cool ensemble type drums, which I've also tried to incorporate into my pieces, albeit only one track for now. But I've learnt a lot from listening to the soundtrack alone. There are loads of things that inspire me, be it artists, songs, tracks, and just anything in general. So it's kind of hard to cover everything, and I know when I think back to this video I'm going to regret not mentioning a few things. And to counter that, I'll post updates in the description about questions that I've just thought a bit more about. Do you have any goals, for example reaching a certain number of followers, challenging yourself with new instruments, etc, etc. My intentions behind releasing and posting music was to never garner an audience or any type of following. I just happened to get lucky. I just love making music and wanted a platform to post my work, and I'm extremely grateful you guys listen to it for whatever reason. In terms of wanting to learn new instruments, after I'm happy with my piano playing, I want to eventually pick up the bass guitar again. I used to play the bass guitar when I was in school, but not that much, but I do remember it being really fun and I want to give it another go. When I think about the goals I might have for music, I can only think of two. One being, I want to compose for an orchestra. When I began composing, I just thought to myself how cool it would be for an orchestra to play one of my pieces, and that's been a big motivation behind the more orchestral pieces I have up on my channel. As for the second goal, would be, I guess, collabs, but you guys will have to find out in the future. How is your music theory progress? I still haven't dedicated time to strictly learning music theory, although I suppose I have learnt some quote-unquote theory indirectly for just making music and practicing. What I mean by that is, by every new piece, I find new hand shapes to use when creating chords. That's really the only idea I have when it comes to practically laying out my ideas. Will your music ever be on streaming platforms? If DistroKid isn't lying to me, most of my songs should already be on all platforms, though sometimes new releases on YouTube are a bit delayed due to the artwork not being complete. What's your favorite anime? This is another topic I can ramble on about hours and hours. But to spare you the details, my all-time favorite anime is Bleach. And some of my favorite characters within Bleach would be White, Shinji, Aizen, and Gin. There are loads of reasons why I like Bleach, but one of the main reasons would be the soundtrack, and in my opinion it has the best soundtrack in all of anime. If I had to name a more recent anime, I'd probably go with Dr. Stone, and definitely Sakamoto Days. How did you get to where you are today? What is your FL Studio setup? I think I've covered most of how I got to where I am today. It was mainly through a lot of practice and just trial and error, until I found something that I like to do. As for what my FL Studio setup is, it's just the normal setup. How do you start a song? I normally start my songs by writing little one-note melodies like this. And then once I have a melody or a motif I'm happy with, I add extra notes under the melody as chords. From there, you can carry on by adding more instruments and developing the progression. Is your name Robert, and why not? My name is not Robert, and it's a long story. How tall are you? About this tall. Do you have any tricks for creating such beautiful music? Most of the time when I'm making music, I don't even know what I'm doing, so I don't know if I have any tips to give. What I can say is try implementing things from songs that you take inspiration from that you like, but obviously do it in your own way. What's your favorite city? In terms of a city I've been to, probably Doha and Qatar. Cats or dogs? Cats. What's your favorite key to write in? I don't typically prefer a key to write in, as I usually write in whatever my fingers land on, but if I restrict myself to a key, it's usually E or G sharp, and even still, the end product is usually moved around. What kept you going? I guess it would just be my love for music. Ever since that first exposure to music when I was young, I couldn't really imagine myself doing anything else. But there have been times where I have doubted myself and if I should continue doing music. But when I start thinking about things like that, I just think about how good I feel when I make music. I know there can be a lot of external pressures when it comes to pursuing what you like, and there can be a lot of things out of your control. I don't know if I should be giving advice, but my advice would be to work on things that you can control, like choosing to work on music in your free time. And make sure that you're taking breaks and prioritizing your mental health, as burning out can suck a lot. In terms of creative blocks, I'd recommend listening to music when you feel like you can't make anything. Use this time to see what others have made and to see what you can learn from them. The last thing I could think of would be to not compare yourself to anybody else, as that could be a huge demotivator. How is it to have friends? Well, you see, it's a long... Do you ever plan on doing content besides music? Maybe. YouTube restored my first ever channel that got terminated after being hacked, and I'm not really sure what to do with it. If you guys want to see content outside of music, I might post it there. And if so, what type of content would you like to see? What's your favorite song that you've posted? I think my favorite songs would usually be the ones that I most recently upload, as I've heard them the least amount of times. But if I had to pick, it'd probably be the Seraphim song. How did you come up with Cogito Ergo Sum? That song exists because I was randomly playing chords on my piano and landed on the first chord for that song. And I thought it sounded pretty cool, so I turned it into a full composition. That's usually all the stories with all the pieces on my channel. They all come around because I just randomly hit keys on my piano. How many pineapples can you fit on a 31cm by 42cm rectangular table made of
mesquite
painted void black? So basically, the way we can work this out, the answer is roughly 10. Favorite candy? M&M's. Have you done any other creative work? Yeah, I have a second account on SoundCloud called STFU4, which has some of my older works. I didn't start off my music journey by composing, instead I made a lot of beats. Originally, I wanted to be a lo-fi producer, and started out by making some questionable lo-fi beats. I didn't care too much at the time about what the song sounded like, as you could clearly hear. All I really cared about was just how fun the process was, and that's what kept me hooked into creating music. But as I learned more, I strayed further and further away from lo-fi, if you could call that lo-fi.
Just bring it back here and LB will give you a nice point.
Those are some tracks I made before I fully got into composing. Nowadays I rarely ever make beats, but I'm very grateful of this time in my life, as I think it helped me train my ear a lot. What's your real name? Are you thinking of retiring? Not for a while. How much do you think you've improved, and what do you think you need to improve most about your music? What do you struggle with? I think I've improved a decent amount. There are still some things that I struggle with, like consistency, but I think it's a lot better now. What I mean by consistency is the quality of the sound in terms of mixing and mastering. Listening through some of my older compositions, I kind of cringe at how poorly mixed some of these tracks are, and comparing my older compositions to my newer ones, I'm a lot happier with the mix. In terms of things I can improve, it would be to step more outside my comfort zone, and I'm working on this by making faster compositions with more percussion, as I feel like that's an element I leave out a lot in majority of my songs. What's your opinion on using FL Studio Mobile, particularly as the predominant DAW? I have little to no experience using FL Studio Mobile. The one time I did use it though, it wasn't too bad. It offered a lot of features for what it is, and I've seen others make ridiculously good songs using it, so it might not be a bad option. What do you do to improve your skills? I think I've mentioned some of these points before, but I'll say them again. I start off by trying different hand shapes on the piano to see what chords they'll create. If there's a particular shape that creates a chord I really like, I'll try to remember the shape of my hand to recreate the chord later. Besides that, I also practice scales to better my technique on the piano. In terms of additional techniques, I listen to other compositions to see what type of techniques they use and try to best replicate it to my abilities. And then after all of that, I try to apply it to my compositions. What's your favorite saying or quote? Cogito ergo sum. Favorite classical piece? It'd probably have to be Piano Concerto No. 2 in E major by Mishkovsky. What are your favorite characters from games, movies, and other works? I've already listed some anime characters I like. In terms of what's on my mind right now, it'd probably be Hinako, Gaster, Steve, and Wheatley. And in terms of movies, all I can think about is either Spider-Man or Baby from Baby Driver. Are you a fish? How many hours a day on average do you work on FL? This heavily depends on the project, but if it's something I like, it'd probably be most of the day. Do you play any instruments or do you largely work on your DAW? I can play the piano, but besides that, I mainly work on my DAW. What's your team on Honkai Star Rails? I mainly run a Casterus team with Casterus, Evernite, Remembrance, Trailblazer, and Hyacine. But I'm also trying to build up a Phanon team. What do you think of your previous works? Like, do you think you've outgrown them and feel as if they don't quite represent you today? To some degree, yeah. I wouldn't say I dislike my previous compositions, as at a point in time I was really happy with them. But to me, compared to the stuff I make now, I feel like I could have done a lot better. Ooh, actually that reminded me, the track Death Epoch might be my second favorite, if not favorite, as I feel like that track I can still listen to without cringing or thinking it's badly mixed. Why did you name yourself Far?